We take you back to Pietermaritzburg High Court, where Ayanda Mhlongo is on standby. A very good morning to you, Ayanda. You've been there since yesterday. What's the latest?
A very good morning to Desiree and good morning to our viewers at home. Well, certainly, Desiree, a very, very busy morning here outside the Pietermaritzburg High Court. I tell you, it's been a buzz of activity from the early hours of the morning as more and more supporters of the former president, ANC members, have started to arrive. Possibly seeing behind me, these cars have just arrived, bringing the son of the former president, Zuma. His sister, Duduzile, also arrived a short while earlier. We have seen some leaders of the ANC, eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda, amongst the leaders that have come through here this morning, and of course some national leaders, former Minister of Home Affairs Malusi Gigaba as well. He has also arrived here and has gone inside the court. And as we just standing outside, I'm with my colleague Samgelo Masego as the supporters of the former president have begun to arrive here. I must say, Desiree, as well, that this morning we have seen a heavy police deployment here with the reinforcements coming from Pretoria and Mpumalanga. Of course, this is the first time in the previous appearances of the former president that we've seen such a massive stage that has been set up. And in terms of the preparations and the organization here outside the court and just across from where we are at the Freedom Square, where the former president will later, after the court proceedings, address his supporters. A great deal of work, a massive stage, as I've said. We have really not seen the preparation that we are seeing here today previously in the previous appearances. I'm just looking at my right. It is very busy. Members of the media trying to get the guests, speak to the guests as they make their way here. Earlier on, of course, the former president, just after 8 a.m. this morning, also arrived here in court. He, of course, uses the back entrance, and so many people that were standing out here where we are, who had hoped to see him or catch a glimpse of him as he came in, unfortunately unable to. But once the court proceedings, of course, are concluded, he is then going to go, and as usual will be going out to address his supporters. Earlier on, we were just speaking to one of the organizers of the support, Pastor Vusi Dube, and he was speaking to us that certainly they are expecting large crowds. In fact, as we speak to you now, Desiree, at Dales Park, which is a few kilometers away from where we are, that is where a large number of the supporters and members of the ANC are gathered as we speak, and they are now going to be marching here to the court, and they're then going to be gathering behind me at the Freedom Square in anticipation for the former president. Of course, while there's so much activity that is taking place outside, the road here where this main road past the court has now been cordoned off, as I said, as more and more people begin to arrive. Of course, while, as I was saying, a lot of activity on the outside, but inside as well in court in terms of the court proceedings today. We know that former president and his defense team have filed papers seeking the recusal of State Advocate Billy Downer. Earlier on, we spoke to NPA spokesperson Mr. Sipongwema, and he said that it is definitely from the state side they are not ready. They have not been able to respond to the affidavit or the documents that have been submitted by the former president, as there was certain documentation that were missing from the papers that he filed. And so the state today is going to be requesting a postponement. He's saying, of course, that by and large, when they look at the arguments that have been put forward by the former president, that it's a regurgitation of old issues. Many of the issues you're saying were those that were raised during the permanent stay of prosecution application, where the former president had cited pre-trial delays, procedural irregularities as some of the concerns when he wanted the case to be scrapped. And so Sipongwema saying that by and large, what the part of the papers that the former president has submitted to the court deal with matters that were that were dealt with and argued in that state of prosecution application, which of course was dismissed by the Pietermaritzburg High Court. So again, as postponement again in the matter, as the state has said, it has not been able to respond in time, as of course more importantly they're saying that there are many documents and extras that are still missing from the papers that were submitted by the former president. I'm just looking around here, as I'm saying, as more and more people are starting to arrive here this morning, and just even on the sidewalk, members of the public have stopped just to get a glimpse of the leaders as they are making their way through. Members of the Zuma family, his 3 children, as I've said, Tutuzile, his sister is here, and also his son, Edward Zuma, is also here. There are also other members of the Zuma family that have also made their way inside court. Desiree?
Ayanda, just taking you away from the case, Malusi Gigaba is fresh from his appearance at the State Capture Commission. Have we ever seen him attend these court hearings before?
Just thinking of that question, Desiree, I'm trying to think back to the times and the number of precedents. We have not seen Malusi Gigaba attend this matter, and that has been quite interesting, as you mentioned him, that a lot of the ANC leaders that are here, Desiree, many of them are coming here for the first time. Last week as well, the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Makashule, he was here for the first time. And so, if my mind serves me correctly, looking back at this case, this is the first time that we've seen Malusi Gigaba attend this case. My colleague Samgelo Masego was just indicating to me that the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Makashule, is here as well. He has just arrived. In fact, there's quite a large crowd that is now gathered outside just as he's alighting from his vehicle. I'm just trying to look from where I am at my vantage point, but my colleague Samgelo Masego is in amongst the people in that crowd. Of course, we'll be trying to speak to the suspended Secretary General of the ANC. One of the points that Desiree, if you remember the last week's appearance, the suspended Secretary of the ANC, Ace Makashule, calling on everybody in the Free State, members of the ANC and those that were not members of the ANC, to converge here to the Pietermaritzburg High Court. A lot of concern in what he was saying. It has been raised by some of the leaders here as well, to say that possibly it was not the correct thing for him to say, considering the fact that the country is still under level 1 of the COVID-19 regulations, and at the point that many provinces are now looking towards the third wave, and some provinces, of course, like Gauteng, have already confirmed that they're now in a third wave. And so there was concern that mobilizing people during this time is reckless. And the supporters, or those who mobilized for the former president, indicating to us earlier that although there had been this call to South Africans to come through in their numbers, they had then in turn asked people to stay away and to try and limit the crowds that had gathered here. Let me cross now to my colleague Samgelo. He's in the crowds there trying to get a word from the suspended Secretary of the ANC.
Yes, indeed, and the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Makashule, has arrived here in court. You can see he's inside this black V-Class Mercedes-Benz, which has brought him here to court. There is a shield, human shield, that is being formed here for his arrival. There are those shouting Ace Makashule. You can see he's arrived to support former President Zuma. The likes of Malusi Gigaba, they are also here to support the former president in court. There are those who are shouting Ace, Ace here in court. As he arrives, his arrival here in court comes at a time when the National Working Committee of the African National Congress has issued a statement through the Deputy Secretary General that more charges can be conferred against the Secretary General of the ANC for his utterances here last week with Tony Yangeni and Carl Niehaus. Mr. Niehaus, we spoke to him earlier on. He said that he's not worried of any charges that may be conferred against him, as the ANC has no case against him. You can see the people that have gathered here. There is no social distancing, and Mr. Makashule has essentially come out of the vehicle on the other side of the car, and he will be making his way to the court now inside court. And as we go around with my colleague Tulani for the arrival of Mr. Magashule, as you can see those visuals, he's out on the other side as we move towards going to Mr. Magashule now. He has arrived here in court, and we will be going in our question as we go towards him. Mr. As we can see, he's arrived here in court and he's asking them to let the media go. He is coming, he is making his way, he's asking them to come down. He's asking them to come down. He is he's arrived here in court as we are being pushed around by security from asking him questions. Other media houses. He has arrived here in court. Guys, Mr. Magashule, the ANC and the must be charged. The ANC and WC says you must be charged. Of you, SABC. Magashule, the ANC and WC. Mr. Magashule, the NWC says you must be charged for your utterances this week. What is your view?
Just be patient. The process to take place. All ANC Africans, just be patient.
Mr. Magashule, what's your view of those charges that may be coming?
Don't worry. Just be patient.
That was the...
You must ANC process. ANC.
That is the Secretary General of the ANC arriving here by those who are here in court. Mr. Magashule, are you worried that you'll be out from the ANC?
Yegani media madon. Yegani media madon. Leave the media madon. Leave the media.
Mr. Magashule.
Leave the media. Let the media. Give them space.
Are you surprised the legislation?
I'm saying I'm not surprised. If ANC things and processes to happen, just be patient.
But the ANC says some of the utterances that were made here last week, that's what you some people say you have not been coming to court. Now that you are facing your own challenges, you are coming.
Meetings of the ANC have always coincided with the case of Comrade President Zuma. Secretary General, I couldn't leave NEC meetings. You must take your calendar. I've always said President Zuma time. So what?
New convener of the new provincial interim. What do you make of
so what?
It's a block.
There's no legacy process. Just be patient, guys.
Are you not apologizing?
Just be patient. You see, I'm floating today like a butterfly.
You will never apologize for anything.
Just be patient, guys.
Mr. Makashule, are you not being opportunistic and hijacking?
Okay.
Mr. Makashule, are you not being opportunistic in hijacking the former president's case to prop?
Please.
The former president said you mustn't bring your.
Please, be patient, guys. Be patient. Be patient.
Was the secretary of the ANC? We were being pushed around there. For those visuals, Mr. Mamapelo, the SG may be charged. What's your view? That was Supra Mamapelo as well, going inside court. There we were being pushed around. I think I've even misled my colleague Vusi from the SABC radio and not gotten any sound from him. We're being pushed around as the Secretary General of the ANC inside court, who's currently suspended by the governing party. And you can see that he says that the ANC, we must wait for ANC processes to unfold with that ANC NWC statement that he may be charged further. Indeed, there we are under our salary, but I'm going to go to Mr. Ntuli, the Provincial Secretary of Natal.
No, I'm not worrying about anything.
Okay.
I'm just coming to support former President Zuma. And I think all of us here, the leadership of the province, that's what we're here to do.
Expecting to be put again.
I think it's not something that you speculate about. I'm only worried about people who may decide to be involved in the booing, and yet probably they are not really genuine members of the ANC who, after booing, accept the responsibility that we must then sit down and respond to whatever their concerns and the discord in the movement. Because booing can't be just for its own sake. It must be an expression of a certain grievance, and genuine members of the ANC will accept that. Once you have expressed that grievance, you equally have a responsibility to sit down with your leadership and find a way in which your grievances can be attended to. But if you boo without that kind of a commitment, then it means you are not a genuine member of the ANC. You are a disruptor, because being a comrade entails a certain responsibility on your part, that you have a right to express your misgivings and your concerns, but you equally have an obligation to sit down with your own leadership and attend to whatever challenges that you have in the best interest of the African National Congress.
Mr. Ntuli, do you still maintain that the SG of the ANC, who's suspended, was offline when he said that he was going to migrate the entire Free State to KwaZulu-Natal? And what happened to that call of his?
You see, we're the provincial leadership of the ANC, and we are not just only responsible to the membership of the ANC. The ANC is a leader of society. It has a responsibility to itself and to the people of KwaZulu-Natal. We expressed that view publicly last time, to say that that view that was expressed by the leader of our movement was inappropriate, was not in line with what is attended to all of us who are leaders of the ANC, because, as you know, the country is going through a difficult period of the pandemic. So you can't say you are going to mobilize everybody to come to a certain area in a way that disregards the current material conditions that we face as a people. So that's why we're saying it was not correct, and we still stand by that view as an organization.
Let's talk about your contradicting positions as the PEC of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, supporting former President Jacob Zuma, when the resolution of the party says there must be a distance between those who are charged for corruption. But as the PEC, you have resolved to support him, but also you want him to campaign for the ANC in the upcoming local government elections.
No, it's not a contradiction. You see, former President Zuma was part of the campaign in 2019. When we were elected in 2018 as a provincial executive committee of the ANC, among other things that we placed on the agenda of the discussion with the national leadership was the question of how the movement must attend to the issues relating to the case of the former president. And there were 2 points that we made. The first one was that this case has been with us for more than almost 2 decades. And the ANC, both at the level of the national executive, this matter, which all of those decisions were saying that the organization must provide whatever possible support that should be given to former President Zuma. And this with our national leadership. We said, but beside that, we now have elements who are not only found from the African National Congress, but also in society, who are opportunistic and want to use the occasion of the appearance of our former president in the Pietermaritzburg High Court in order to profile their own political agenda and political motives, which are essentially contrary to the position of our movement and the ideals of the National Democratic Revolution. And we said we cannot keep quiet and allow that to proceed uninterrupted. And that's why the leadership said, the base of those two things, we agree with you. We think that you must intervene, and your intervention acceded to the call of our movement for an hour to explain to her it is the committee, a process that I've undertaken with all members of the ANC who are implicated or affected by the decision of the NEC. And she unconditionally supported that. I saw some headline in a certain newspaper that saying that position. I don't think that is true. We met yesterday, and as you may be knowing, when we were meeting, there was a parallel meeting that was going on of the regional leadership, the regional interim later on, which was followed by. We ended our. She did not proceed to those meetings because of the understanding that to do in contrary to the position of the ANC, which she has herself unconditionally accepted.
Mr. Ntuli, there is a case against one of your members from this region, from Willowfontein, Mr. Zweli Mkhize, the Minister of Health, that he is involved in impropriety with some of his subordinates who've worked with him in his days as Premier of the province, in his days as TG Tahera Mata. As the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, what's your view of your member and your former provincial chairperson being involved worth millions?
Well, I'm not aware of any court that is against Comrade Zweli Mkhize, and I think once we are familiar with the facts around those issues, we can. We are not aware of any court case that has been opened against.
Are you not worried of the corruption scandals against him as the person who's spearheading the COVID-19?
We get worried about scandals that are associated with any of our leaders, irrespective of whether from somewhere else. Anything that is negative, which has a potential to impact on extending the direction of our movement, remains a central concern to us as an organization. So it is not just about what may be reported or any responsibility to ensure that at times the ANC standing and the reputation is not in any way affected by what is happening around members of the ANC.
Okay. Well, that's Noma Kukusimelani, the MEC of Health in the province. There is the legal team of Thales, right? Noma Kukusimelani is a PEC member of the ANC.
Program.
She is arriving here in court to support former President Jacob Zuma. Earlier on, we spoke to
Samkele Maseko, they're bringing us all that activity coming out of the Pietermaritzburg High Court, that criminal case against former President Jacob Zuma and French arms company Thales. As Ayanda was indicating earlier, so much more activity, more crowds expected this morning, a bigger stage for that after trial session that they usually have afterwards. Ayanda, we're going to bring you back into the picture. What's the latest that you have for us?
Well, thanks very much, Desiree. From my vantage point, what a scramble that was, as my colleague Samkele Maseko was trying, of course, to get the leaders of the ANC, the suspended Secretary General Ace Magashule, and the Secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, Dumseni Ntuli. Of course, just from where I am, Desiree, the road is now closed, as I was saying earlier on. A lot of people are now also hovering around here wanting to get a glimpse. The cell phones are out, screaming and shouting as the leaders of coming through, the leaders of the ANC. I also saw during the scramble as Samgelo was trying to speak to the Secretary General, and as they were making his way into court, I saw the representative, the legal representative of the French arms company Thales, Advocate Barry Roux. He has arrived. We are yet to see the representative of the French arms company, Mr. Pierre-Jean-Marie. The last time he was in court, and the court had, of course, instructed that he also be back in court here this morning. We have not seen him yet go through. He might have gone through Desiree while we were still busy out here as well. So much that is happening where we are, Desiree. It's also grabbed the attention of a lot of people that are out here, as I'm saying, ordinary members of the public who are going about on their daily routine, stopping as well to see all this activity that is taking place. Of course, myself and Samgelo are outside the court, but inside the High Court, my colleague Simpiwe Makanya is going to be monitoring the court proceedings for us. Simpiwe?
Allocated their seats. Among them is the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal and the chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Zikalala, as well as the mayor of eThekwini Metro, that's in Police Kaunda. Just among the few that are already sitting inside the courtroom as we speak. There's also the representatives from the family, Zuma, former President Jacob Zuma's family, Edward Zuma, and due to the Zuma as well, they are currently inside the court as we speak. But within the court premises, I can certainly tell you that there's a lot of activity. I have seen the former Minister of Transport, Joe Maswabani, as well as the former Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba, presenting himself also in support of former President Jacob Zuma. Perhaps one would say it is unusual for him to come to the courtroom. Ayanda? Sure.
Simpiwe, we've seen footage of the suspended Secretary General of the African National Congress, Ace Magashule, having several conversations in the, I don't know if it's inside the courtroom or just outside. Do we know what kind of conversations are underway?
I'm unable to hear you at the moment because of the noise inside the court premises, but perhaps to give you a picture of what is currently happening. We've seen a lot of political leaders mingling and just interacting with one another. I see right in front of me former President Jacob Zuma's son, Zuma, as well, of course, as the provincial secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, among those who are currently waiting to be, ushered inside the courtroom before the court proceedings actually get underway. But of course, there's that issue that happened last week when the former president was addressing his supporters outside, where the two leaders in particular of the ANC here was the provincial secretary, as well as the chairperson of the ANC, they were viewed by supporters of the former president as they were busy, just basically conducting the program. We don't know in terms of what is going to be expected this time around, as more supporters are already, making their way in anticipation of what is going to be happening this morning.
Making every attempt to bring the story to you. I think Samkele Maseko is now ready to give us the latest from where he is, but we'll go to Ayanda Mhlongo first. Ayanda, what's happening on your side?
Yeah, thanks very much, Desiree. Let me just take you through, Desiree. We're speaking about the preparations this time that have gone into today's appearance of the former president. this, Desiree, is something that we have not seen since the last 2 years that we've been covering this case. The organization is completely different. I'm just going to ask my colleague Tula Malaro just to show you this stage that has been set up this time. And a massive stage here at Desiree. As I was saying, the first time that we have seen such order that has been in terms of the organization here, as they anticipate for the first time that today they're going to have the biggest numbers of supporters than what we have previously seen. Members of the ANC live here in your visuals. They're gearing up for the former president, who will be addressing them once the court proceedings have been concluded. The stage that has been set up, the hashtag hands off Msholozi, 100% behind Msholozi.
We're seeing activity from inside and outside the Pietermaritzburg High Court. Live footage that we just saw now from inside. Former President Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane Zuma, taking photo opportunities there with the suspended African National Congress Secretary General Ace Magashule Simpiwe. I don't know if you're still with us. That footage we just saw of those photo ops with the Secretary General and Duduzane Zuma. Simpiwe is not joining us right now, but will give us an update later. And let's now go to Samkele Maseko. Samkele, what's happening where you are?
Essentially, Desiree, what is happening is that now those who are in charge of this supporters of former President Zuma, they are asking those who are gathered in the streets here of Pietermaritzburg to go inside the market square, where there will be an address by former President Zuma. Once the inside proceedings of inside court have wrapped up, they will then be addressed by the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Magashule, and Supra Muhamapelo, the former provincial chairperson of the ANC in the Northwest. We do understand that the provincial leadership of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal is also inside court. You saw the provincial chairperson Side Zigalala arriving, and also the provincial secretary Mtumiseni Ntuli going inside court, and the MEC of Health in the province and PEC member, former spokesperson Nomagugu Simelani Zulu, she is also inside, and the mayor of the metro in the province, the mayor of eThekwini municipality, Olisi Kaunda, is also inside. Those are the 4 PEC members who are here to support the former president, and the 5th is Super Rose Zuma, the chief whip in the legislature, also former provincial secretary of the ANC in the province. As you can see, there are many others who are arriving. I see another vehicle, as I'm just going to ask my colleague Tulani to show you. I'm not sure who is in that particular vehicle that is arriving here now in court to support the former president of the ANC, Jacob Zuma, as he enters court. I'm just going to ask my colleague Tulani, as we go towards this particular leader of the ANC who's arriving here in court to support the former, it's Zandile Kumete, the former mayor of eThekwini municipality. She's arrived here in court. She's also stepped aside.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about your support for former President Jacob Zuma. Why are you here to support the former president?
I'm here to support our president, Jacob Zuma, and that's why I'm here today.
Have you stepped aside? There are conflicting reports about you stepping aside. Have you stepped aside, Deputy Mayor?
How are you feeling, Mrs. Kumeto, on the appearance of the former president here today?
You are also going back to court next month. Are you ready? Are you ready for a court case?
Zandile Kumete, her supporters are supporting her.
Have you stepped aside?
She is going inside the court right now. She is the former mayor of eThekwini municipality. She is here to support former President Jacob Zuma. Last week she could not come as there was a bereavement at home, as she had lost her brother and could not come to court. There are issues where allegations that yesterday she had an hour-long meeting with the provincial secretary in KwaZulu-Natal. Security pushing us here. That is Zandile Kumete going inside to support the former president. Yesterday she had an hour-long meeting with the provincial secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, Mtumseni Ntuli, where she has voluntarily stepped aside as an ANC leader and deputy convener of the eThekwini region. There was a meeting with branches yesterday evening where she could not attend that particular meeting with the branch secretaries and chairpersons of the eThekwini region due to the virtue that she had stepped aside. She could not come here because of a bereavement where she had lost her brother and couldn't attend the court proceedings. She's a long-time staunch supporter of the former President Jacob Zuma. You'd remember that period going towards the 54th National Conference of the ANC and to the 2015 Provincial Conference of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, the various problems that the eThekwini region had, and those 3 reruns of the provincial conferences where she was contesting against the then mayor of eThekwini, James Nxumalo, who had won those 3 provincial conferences, and subsequently the 4th one, Zandile Kumete, emerged in that provincial conference. She then became the mayor of eThekwini municipality and subsequently was removed on the virtue of that 246 million rands waste tender scandal that took place in the eThekwini municipality. So, as we had dubbed it earlier on, the coalition of the wounded has arrived here in court. Those who are outside the leadership structures of the ANC and those who are outside government and others who just remain as members of either the provincial legislatures or members of parliament. But essentially the coalition of the wounded is here, with an exception of the provincial leadership of KwaZulu-Natal, whom have taken a decision to come and support the former president, particularly in an election year, that there should not be any alien elements that creep in in these court appearances of former President Jacob Zuma. Before we link back to studio, we'd just like to check if there are any other leaders who are arriving at this point. But in Desiree, for this point in time, those are the leaders of the ANC who've arrived. As and when they arrive, we'll continuously keep updating, and we apologize for that particular individual who just walked in front of our camera at this point in time. For now, back to you in studio, Desiree.
Samkele, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed. Ayanda, let's come back to you at this moment. Earlier on, while you were about the stage, I noticed what seemed like new branding of the former President Jacob Zuma in ANC colors. Just tell us, to what extent is this support for Jacob Zuma? To what extent they're using digital platforms and new technologies to garner support?
Well, certainly, Desiree, the mobilization behind the support of the former president has indeed been massive. It has been on social media, various social media platforms, beginning from last week. And there's also what the mobilizers have also been doing is that they have been going around to ANC branches, mobilizing support for the ANC. It happens at a time when, particularly here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, the ANC is currently holding branch general meetings in preparation for the regional conferences, and of course in preparation for the local government elections in October this year. And so the supporters of the former president have been using those branch meetings to mobilize support for the former president. That has not only been here in KwaZulu-Natal. We understand that in other provinces as well, like the Free State, like Mpumalanga, that there has been a lot of groundwork that is being done in the last week or so. This committee has been meeting regularly in terms of their preparations. And as we're saying, Desiree, that this is the first time that we've seen the preparations at this level, the first time that we've seen a stage so big. And of course, Desiree, the other point is that previously the support of the former president has been the responsibility of the radical economic transformation champions. And the ANC's National Executive Committee then meeting and issuing that statement, distancing themselves from any RET faction or grouping. And so the supporters then have had to change away and move away from the mobilization being done by the RET champions. Now it's the hashtag solidarity for the former president. It's again seeing all the friends of the former president, Desiree, coming through to mobilize funds and in terms of the support for him. You remember previously the group, the Friends of Jacob Zuma, we understand that some of those leaders or members of the ANC that were part of the Friends of Jacob Zuma, again coming through and being part of this new structure or task team that has been set up to be responsible for the campaign for the former president. So it's certainly, Desiree, as you're saying, it's been quite an intense week of mobilization on various social media platforms, and this has been the outcome. They wanted and they planned to completely shut down the town of Pietermaritzburg, and in the area and the vicinity of the Pietermaritzburg High Court, they certainly have done that, Desiree. We'll also just in a while, Desiree, start to speak to the people who have come here. Others have traveled from the various provinces as far as Mpumalanga and the Free State to come and show their support for the former president. Desiree?
Let's take you now back inside court, and on the line we have Simpiwe Makanya. Simpiwe, as we're watching footage coming from inside, we're seeing there Advocate Dali Mpofu. What's the latest from inside?
Desiree, all legal representatives in this matter are now currently inside the courtroom as we speak. Earlier on, the legal representatives of the French Arms Company, Thales, Advocates Berry Group, leading his team, just entered the courtroom. I see also, as you mentioned, Advocate Dalimpo is also now inside the courtroom. Of course, coming with the legal representatives of the former Jacob Zuma. The person who is going to be, the talk of the day as far as this matter is concerned, is Advocate Billy Downer, and I can see him interacting now with Advocate Dali inside the courtroom. Before, of course, the formal proceedings get underway. It's going to be very challenging. It's going to be very crucial for the former president to now be in a position to say, with all of this has been said and done in terms of him alleging that there is a conspiracy, a political conspiracy against him, and that is why he is charged. But it's going to be crucial for him to prove before this courtroom that what he has been alleging all this time is indeed true. When it comes in particular to the issue of the plea application, wanting of course the removal, the recusal of the advocate, the lead advocate in this particular matter. Any minutes from now, we expect proceedings to begin. But as far as the situation inside the courtroom, it's just those legal representatives interacting with one another before the official, commencement of the formal court. So the former president is not yet inside the courtroom, but he is, of course, inside the court. In the whole room. I see the Secretary General, the suspended General of the ANC, that Mr. Zuma Corruption are about to enter the court premises as well. That's right.
Simpiwe, thank you so much for that update. As you can see, the legal representatives for former President Jacob Zuma, Advocate Dalimpo Fude, and the man of the moment, Advocate Masuku, who last week made the announcement that his client is ready for trial, and also that they want the recusal of Mr. Billy Downer from the state prosecution side. And we will see how that unfolds this morning. As you heard from that conversation with Samkele Maseko earlier, the NPA saying that it might be seeking a postponement. Today, Mzwai Mbeje is the political editor at the SABC. He's been listening in on all of these developments. A very good morning to you, Mzwai. What do you make of proceedings this morning? What are your forecasts?
Well, a very good morning to you, Desiree, and the viewers. Well, it's going to be another long delay. In fact, my prediction at Desiree is that we're still going to have another delay, given that the application that will be made today, and the NPA has already indicated that they are not ready, so they would still need to go back. And those deliberations still mean we are still far from the actual trial. And remember, the trial was supposed to have started from last week until, I think, the end of June. So given the situation, we are going to hear in terms of what they were told, the issue of the plea bargain, and then the formal request or application for Advocate Billy Downer to recuse himself. So these are still side issues. We are not on the issue as yet at Israel.
Mzwai, we've been talking with our colleagues on the ground about the interesting development of new faces coming through to support the former president. Ayanda making a note that it was Zuma Corruption's first appearance last week. Today, fresh from his appearance at the State Capture Commission, we see former Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba also coming through. What are we to read from this?
You know, one of the things we've been saying, Desiree, is that this could be a trial spanning 15 years or more. But what is the shape that it's taking now? It's taking the shape which basically will define the politics in the ANC. If you look at those people congregating there, you can see that it's now much more about what is happening inside. The suspended Secretary General really needs all the kind of support that he can get. So he will do everything to offer that support to the former president. And some of those people that you see there, so politically, they are really battling. They would want to somehow revive their political fortunes. And I think we did mention this, Desiree, last week, that the ANC elective conference is next year, 2022. The stakes are very, very high. So what you see playing itself out outside there, it's the beginning of the fight for 2022.
In this fight, Mzwai, last night we saw the Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte addressing the media, talking about a possible charge for misconduct against the suspended Secretary General, which then adds on to the charges that he's currently facing. Of course, we were all watching this morning to see if himself, Mr. Tony Yengeni, and Mr. Carl Niehaus will be coming through to the courthouse. And we've already, the SABC has already spoken to Mr. Niehaus, and the Secretary General is also at the court at this time when Ayanda tells us that bigger crowds are expected than ever before. What are we to read from this? Is Zuma Corruption saying he's not backing down?
You know, after the proceedings at court, it will be very interesting to watch, particularly those three individuals. I haven't seen Tony Yengeni, but when you heard Carl Niehaus earlier, he basically said, as far as he's concerned, he had done nothing wrong. And the suspended Secretary General, when he speaks outside today, it will be very interesting to watch, because on the face of it, those statements he uttered may have gone against the conditions that they had put to him, that he may not mobilize or address in the name of the ANC. But that's what he did. So that's why they are contemplating the charge. If they are going ahead and do exactly as they did last time, so it will simply confirm, Desiree, that so it's all out war, so to speak. So they will do everything to try and get back themselves in the ANC. I don't think it's the nice thing for someone who has spent his entire life in the politics to all of a sudden be out in the cold. And so you'll try everything that is possible to try and become obviously relevant. So, as I said earlier, so when you see those people, you've seen Zandile Kumed as well, who's supposed to step aside. So all those people are congregating there. It's about politics. Yes, many of us are saying we are coming to the trial of former President Jacob Zuma, but this is the regrouping of the politics and ahead of the 2022.
Let's speak again about the plea by the former President's Council for the recusal of lead state prosecutor advocate Billy Downer. CASEC, CASEC, I just want to remember what the full name of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, CASEC, says they believe that the former president could be looking to be acquitted of all charges. What's the basis for this assumption?
Desiree, if there is merit in what the former president will say in seeking the recusal of Billy Downer, so, and then there's sufficient evidence that there may have been meddling in the case or undue influence. So, and legal experts would tell you that he then has grounds to seek for the acquittal. So, yes, it would be very interesting to hear now the arguments. I heard that the NPA basically said they haven't responded in full, but they were saying it appears that the former president is rehashing old issues that have been raised before, but let's hear them when they are being ventilated at court. So if there is actually merit in some of the things they are saying, so I think that could be the next step that they could go for, to say, well, so we have said this person must be recused because he has done this and that. So there is no basis of a fair trial. In this instance, the acquittal is the only way. So it is indeed possible at Desiree.
So stay with us. We're going back to Ayanda now. Ayanda, you're outside court. What's the latest where you are? All right, we don't seem to be having Ayanda now. Mzwayi, I'm coming back to you just in terms of the legal team of the former president. We've just seen Advocate Dalimpofu there having a word with Advocate Masuku, putting on their silk ties. Is there any significance, or is it procedural that these have to be put on inside the court? Just the optics of that for you.
Well, where you put it, I don't think it matters really. But remember, these are senior counsel, and of course, a senior counsel is somebody at a particular level. So if he or she is to discharge their duty, so they need to be in that space, or they need to be dressed in such a manner that befits that. So I don't think it matters that it was done inside. They could have done it outside courts. Sometimes you'd see Desiree, some would come already dressed up. So yeah, I just think it's one of those that perhaps was running late and then he decided to do it in court.
Just politically, Mzwayi, that media briefing by Jesse Duarte yesterday and its timing, does it speak to the process that's going on right now? Certainly, and especially, you remember, Desiree, what Mr. Magashule said last time at the appearance. He had basically said
I want the whole of Free State to be in KZN. And then Jesse Duarte addressed that issue to say the day before yesterday, she had a discussion with Mr. Magashule to say he needed to reconsider that position. And then the fact that Jesse Duarte was able to communicate that on national television, national radio, to say many people had expected the entire Free State to descend there, but the Secretary General had decided that no, he is no longer on that stance. So I think it made so much sense. I think from the point of view of the ANC, it really helped them because they are also worried. There's also issues of COVID-19. We are entering the third wave. In fact, other provinces are already in the third wave. So if you then allow people to gather in these numbers, particularly Free State, currently Free State is struggling. I mean, when you look at Free State, Northern Cape and Gauteng, those ones are already in the grip of the third wave. So
Zai, I'm going to disturb you here just to speak to what's happening on our live visuals. The former President Jacob Zuma walking. We're not sure at this stage where he is walking to. But we had a similar situation last week where in the middle of proceedings, he just walked out of court, and I think he was going to have a private meeting in the private rooms, but we'll get an update from our colleague inside court later on. But right now we're seeing the former Premier of the Northwest Province, Supra Mahumapilu. We're also seeing the SG, former suspended Secretary General of the African National Congress, Ace Magashule. Of course, social distancing being observed. We're also seeing Duduzane Zuma in that shot. Ayanda, let's bring you back into the conversation. What's happening where you are?
Thanks again, Desiree. Well, we are just outside the court at Freedom Square, out in front of the stage, Desiree, where the supporters, many of them that had previously were gathered on the road, have now been requested to come into Freedom Park and start to converge in the area here, as they, of course, will be anticipating the proceedings inside the court to be concluded. Then the former president will then be making his way here to the Freedom Square. Desiree, my colleague Mzondi Lembeche was just speaking about one of the concerns around COVID-19 during this time. And one of the points that was raised by the supporters for the former president and those that have been mobilizing the support, they gave the assurance that they're going to try and ensure that there is social distance, that people that have come out here today are wearing masks. Unfortunately, Desiree, that is not the picture that we are seeing here on the ground. People that are here are standing close to each other, and some of them, in fact, quite a number of them, as you can see, just these people behind us are not wearing masks. We were also told that there was going to be people that were going to be moving around sanitizing the members of the public that have come out here together. That has not taken place. We have not been seeing people being sanitized. And so this, of course, is of great concern because, as Mzondi was saying, many of the people that are expected to come here today, and some indeed have arrived, come from the provinces like the Free State, and Gauteng, where they are already now within the third wave. So a great deal of concern around that. And in particular as well, which is why the ANC in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, they raised their concerns and unhappiness with the statements that had been made by the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Magashule, when he made an open invitation to people in the Free State, saying that the entire Free State must come down here to KwaZulu-Natal. And they said that those statements were reckless, particularly at this time. And indeed, this is very, very worrying when you see the numbers of people that are coming out. And this is just a small crowd that has gathered here. We are told that there are some other people that are currently gathered at Thales Park. Now, Thales Park is about a couple of kilometers from where we are. There are crowds that have gathered at Thales Park, and they're then going to be making their way here to join these supporters that have gone to. We're also earlier on Desra, I was speaking to you about the very, very heavy police deployment outside the court. We have not really in the past seen a deployment of police officers to this magnitude. There are police officers that are here from Mpumalanga, from Pretoria, that have come to assist the police officers here in KwaZulu-Natal. We are told that around the court precincts, police officers have this area covered. We also saw a police helicopter flying over. There are police officers on horseback. There are police officers that are walking around patrolling. There are police armored vehicles. I saw at least 4 police armored vehicles that have been deployed here to the court. So a heavy, heavy police deployment. And of course, aside from the police, there is the security as well. The members of Mkhonto Wesizwe, not only from KwaZulu-Natal, but from other provinces as well, also here to assist with the security here outside the court. So definitely, there's a lot of what we are seeing here this time. We have not seen it in the past, and clearly showing that those that are behind or responsible for this are certainly making a statement regarding the support of the former president. It's going to be interesting today at Desiree what the speakers are going to be saying here this morning. There were concerns about the statements that had been made last week by the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, S. Makhashule, as well as ANC NEC member Tony Yengeni and the MKMVA spokesperson Mr. Carl Niehaus. We understand that the ANC in KZN has met with Ace Makhashule, an attempt to try and speak to him and run their concerns with the statements that are being made. We do know that the former president himself has expressed his dissatisfaction with the manner in which things unfolded, where there were some leaders of the ANC, namely the Secretary Mtumseni Ntuli and the chairperson in the province, Sihle Zikalala, who were being booed by some of the members of the party that were there on the day. And the president, even on the day, saying that that was not the correct platform and that he was not going to allow a situation where the court appearance is about him as Jacob Zuma, and is not going to allow it where members of the ANC who have their differences regarding party issues, that those party issues must not be ventilated at this gathering, that this gathering is solely for people who have come out to support Jacob Zuma, and it's not for people to vent out their frustrations. He said that ANC members know that where there are disputes and where there are differences, those differences must be dealt with in party meetings, in party conferences. And again, we were told this morning when speaking to Pastor Vusi Dube that he in fact had spoken to the former president just this morning, and the former president is said to have said and urged Pastor Dube and some of the other leaders that are mobilizing support that today they must ensure that scenes that took place the last time or that we saw last time do not take place today. In fact, we're told Desiree that he's quite stern, and he said that if people out here today boo any of the leaders before he comes out of court, then he is not going to be addressing their supporters. So the former president very, very stern that this platform is about him and him only. It's not about ANC politics. But unfortunately, Desiree, of course, while the former president might say that, I mean, we've been picking up rumblings and some of the discussions amongst the members of the public who are here. In fact, when the secretary of the ANC, Mtumseni Ntuli, walked in, I heard a group that was next to me saying, Nangulo, Nangefiga, remarking that here's Mtumseni, but just in the manner in which that they were saying, in the manner in which they were saying it, clearly they're not happy to see him here, and many saying that they don't want to see them on stage. So there is a possibility that once again we could see them show their dissatisfaction and the fact that they don't want to see leaders like Mtumseni Mtuli and Asihle Zegalala here. I mean, one could gauge just from the excitement and the cheers when Ace Makhashule arrived. Groups just flocked to him and started chanting Ace, Ace, Ace. That's the same that happened with Super.
Ayanda, as you speak about Umuntu Efika, here we see the MKMVA arriving, but we're quickly just going to go into court to speak to our colleague Simpiwe Makanya. Simpiwe, it's just after 10, and are you getting a sense inside that matters are about to begin?
Yes, well, a short while ago, we saw the legal possibility of the former president as well as the state, exiting the courtroom. But now I can tell you that the legal representatives of the French arms company Thales that advocates the role is currently inside the court. We also saw the new face in this particular court case that advocates Dalimbo inside the courtroom shortly. There has been an indication that he has joined Advocate Masubu as the former president, Zuma's legal representative. But inside the courtroom, there's just look around and see the former eThekwini mayor, Azandile Gumede, is amongst those, of course, who have entered the courtroom. And the suspended Secretary General of the ANC, Ace Makhashule, is also inside the courtroom. I see also the former chairperson of the ANC in the Northwest, that's Supreme Mapilo, also sitting inside the courtroom. The situation as it stands is that all the leaders who are here to support the former president are currently sitting inside the courtroom as we speak. But he has not entered the courtroom. That's right.
Simpiwe, do we know how determinations are made as to who goes inside the courtroom or not?
Well, my understanding is that everyone who is currently inside the courtroom has been accredited in terms of the processes, like members of the media are. I see all of them have got their armbands and it has been accredited. Oh, just now I see the advocate Dalimbo making his way now inside the courtroom. As I just speak to you, he's just inside the courtroom. That's basically the situation as it is. There is currently the case here inside the courtroom. Advocate Masubu as well as entering the court. I believe that proceedings are now about to commence any minute from now, with all the legal representatives now currently inside the courtroom as we speak. Yes.
Simpiwe, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed. And as we wait for proceedings to begin, as you can see from the live footage, it does seem like proceedings are just about to begin. But we have on the line Advocate Professor Dumi Masinyane, who will speak to us about what to expect. But as you can see from the live footage, former President Jacob Zuma walking back into court. Dr. Masinyane, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us this morning. As we get your analysis, as we wait to begin proceedings at the courthouse, what do you think? Do you think that the recusal of Advocate Billy Downer, that process will be entertained this morning?
Good morning, and the viewers at home. I don't believe, because I've just heard the spokesperson for NPA now that they have received the Zuma's application, but it has no supporting documents.
All right, let's take you back. Let's take you inside court now. Proceedings are beginning.